What's up YouTube, Del here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you my undefeated Fire King Diabellstar profile. Now I'm going to do this profile a little bit differently because what I'm going to do is I'm going to assess the decks. Now that I've played Fire Kings with Tri-Brigade, with Dogmaticas and with the Diabellstar engine, I wanted to kind of give you my breakdown, my evaluation of where I feel the middle ground is, where I feel the best version is, and why each one has their benefits and negatives. So this list went to locals. I ended up drawing a round, which meant I ended up getting second. It was a very kind of weird matchup. It was the mirror matchup and didn't go so well. I didn't play the greatest, and then we basically just hit time. Other than that, I ended up facing Vanadiums, and then I also ended up facing branded Chimera, or Chimera branded because it was more focused around those, and then Darkworlds as well. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So as you can see, we'll start off with the Fire King cards themselves. I feel that this is the base minimum for the staples in my opinion. Now I've been learning my lesson on a previous build. I did 2 Kirin and 2 Garunics. Definitely wrong. Going to 3 Kirin, like I underestimated how good the card was. 2 Garunics was absolutely fine for me. I don't feel that you need the third. Yes, it's great if you open it up. And if you open it up, it means that the search of the Fire King Island becomes your Kirin if you've already got the Ponyx. So it's not bad to have 3, but for me personally, having 2 was absolutely perfect. I had no issues with it, and it did everything it needed to. 1 Barong was great, and the 1 Advata was also pretty good. There was a time where I opened it, and I didn't have my normal summon, but I had the option for Sanctuary. So I was able to use Sanctuary, get Garunix, but I could normal summon the Advata first, meaning that as soon as I got my Garunix to the board, I was protected from everything from that point, or monster effect from that point onwards. The best thing about this as well, especially with Kirin, there was a couple of times where I would destroy Kirin, bring back the Barong, but mainly destroy the Advata to bring back the Barong, so then Barong gets destroyed during the end phase, and then it would float again during the next standby phase, so I got a free search during my standby phase. Yeah, I think everything else here is pretty staple. I still haven't learnt my lesson on siding out 1 Fire King Island. Basically, as I was playing my duels, I was like, damn, I keep opening up Fire King Island. I don't want it to be Fire King Island. I'd rather it be another card, namely like a side deck card. So in a couple of matchups, I did side it out. There's obviously times where it worked, and I was like, yeah, cool. There was one time where I opened up Sanctuary and Fire King Island, and I activated Sanctuary without being able to activate Fire King Island direct from the deck, but obviously I could activate it from the hand. Now, it's obviously very, very risky because if your opponent gets rid of the first Fire King Island, especially with Fenrir running around, you then don't have that consistent search every single turn. On top of that as well, a lot of people do target the Fire King Island. They're like, right, okay, Fire King Island is the card that I need to get rid of, and then attempt to try and nuke the board, so that's what they kind of target for. Now, I'm not saying Fenrir, when it banishes the Fire King Island face down, nukes the board, it doesn't do that, but I'm saying, like, Fenrir gets rid of it, banishes it face down, there's no way that card is coming back, so that's when you want that second one to have a bit of a follow-up. Fire King Skyburn, absolutely amazing. Really, really do like this card. Again, it's another one of them ones that came out of the structure deck and I've kind of undervalued it. But the more and more I've tested with this deck, the more and more I've played it, the more and more I've enjoyed it. So definitely that's why I'm kind of aiming towards that a little bit more so than anything else as well. Everything else pretty standard on that one. The Reg Barley I don't feel is that great of a card. Yes, okay, the Spell and Trap Negate is awesome, but it's only really going to be good if they imperm. And even then, when they imperm you, you're kind of like, okay, whatever, I'll absorb that, because then all I need to do is destroy the Garunix, Kirin, let it float back, and everything else from that point on. So that's it for the Fire King cards. I'm now going to show you all of the additional supporting engines, then I'll show you the hand traps, and then we'll go through the extra deck and the side deck. Okay, so the supporting engine. We've got Fenrir, and then of course we've got the Diabellstar Sinful Spores engine of 2-star, 3 Wanted, and 1 Snake Eyes. Now, I have to admit it, this card is absolutely insane. That's the reason why the engine is the way it is. However, on review, it doesn't really do a huge amount more than the Dogmatica engine. Now, let me explain before you all go crazy. What it ideally does is it just gives you multiple ways of consistency to get to your Ponyx, which is technically what Nadir Servant can do. So in a sense, you could treat Nadir Servant as the same of Wanted Sinful Spoils. Because, of course, if they ash your Sinful Spoils, you're not going to get your root. If they ash your Nadir Servant, you're not going to get your root. So it all kind of has the same relative outcome. The only difference is what Wanted gives you is that draw factor in the graveyard if it's already set up. It gives you access to the Sinful Spoils Snake Eyes. It gives you more consistency, and it gives you a mini boss monster on the board. Arguably so, Nadir Servant can get you a mini boss monster on the board. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you're okay with, I mean, at the end of the day, this engine here is like nearly £200. Whereas the Nadir Servant engine, if you were to just play the Maximus and the Fleur-de-Lis, is a heck of a lot less than that. It's probably like 50 quid, if that. It's like a fraction of the price. I mean, Nadir Servants come in supers now, you can pick them up. I think Maximus has gone up in price, and the Fleur-de-Lis has had 2 prints, or 3 prints actually, because it came as a common in the Albaz structure deck. So what I'm saying is the rest of the deck can all be exactly the same, and you can replace this 6-card engine with a 5-card engine here, or if you wanted to match 6 of 6, of course you can put the Schism in, as I've previously shown you. Nadir Servant gives you the same outcome of Wanted Sinful Spores on its first effect. The only issue is it's not a quick effect, so it can't be activated during the draw phase, whereas Wanted Sinful Spores can do to allow you to play around draw. Yes, it does give you a boss monster on the board, but your boss monster doesn't lead you to your Snake Eyes or to your Ponix. That's what Nadir Servant does. So it's a little bit of a longer way around to get to it, but you then need to kind of go, well, is that additional 150 plus investment worth it if you're just going to a local environment? So what I'm saying is, if you look at this build and go, whoa, he's got the Dio Bellstar engine in, I'm not interested at all, it's too expensive. Well, what I'm saying is technically net deck this entire build and just replace this engine with this engine, and you're kind of on the same level. Now, Fenrir, on the other hand, is a completely different story. This card's just crazy good. Now, obviously, it's a little bit better with the Dio Bellstar engine because it does give you that additional free fodder to send. However, what it also does give you is it does give you that threat that if your opponent clears your board off, they know you've got a Fenrir coming back the next turn. One huge bit of advice I would say about the Fenrir is summon down the Fenrir first before you do anything, but then make sure you're activating your Fire King Eye and your Ponixes or anything like that before you attempt to activate the Fenrir effect. The last thing you want to do is activate the Fenrir effect, search out Fenrir, and they go draw, and you go, yep, cool, my hand was now Ponix, Fire King Island, I can't make any more plays. So that's the one side note that I will mention with this. Again, if you don't have access to Fenrir, you could probably main deck something like Prankatops. You could also then look into, for a cheaper Sinful Spores engine, which is something that I'm highly considering, is the Snake Eyes Ash, the Snake Eyes Flameberg, and of course the Sinful Spores Subversion. You could then also play your original Sinful Spores as well. So if you wanted to adapt the engine a little bit more, you could take it to a bit more of a budget route. And if you were lucky enough to pull a Kurakara from a OTS, you could also put Kurakara in here, just because you've got a way to actually search Kurakara from these cards as well, which is really kind of cool, because to search Kurakara and then just go, okay, cool, and nuke out the entire board is really kind of cool. So you do have budget options. It won't get you the consistency that this adds, but it will give you relatively the same outcome of what it's attempting to do, while still allowing the rest of the deck to be exactly the same. Okay, so now I'm going to take you through the hand traps, and then we'll move on to extra and side. So for the hand traps, all pretty straightforward and simple on this one. Obviously, the main of the Droll, the Ashes, Veilers, Nibs, Crows, and then Imperms. Honestly, I'm highly considering swapping out the Veilers for something like a Ghost Ogre, just to try something a little bit differently. Because when you look at this, I've got targeted negation, board clearance, graveyard removal, search stop-in, search lock-in, but then there's not really anything that's destruction, and I quite like the idea of Ghost Rabbit, Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit being that destruction option. So that's something that I would kind of consider looking into. I'm just not set on it as of yet. I mean, not much more needs to be said about the hand traps. It's all pretty straightforward and simple in here. Nothing really causes you much of an issue. Crow's actually really good this format. I do have Bestials in the side deck as well. But the reason that the Bestials were kind of sided for Crows is for the fact that Crows are just a really nice, just banish anything. So it can help you against the Rescue Ace matchup. It can help you in the darkworld matchup, which of course the Bestials can do as well. But then it can also help you in the mirror match, being able to get rid of Ponixes during the standby phases or previously to that. And it can also help you with the Dio Bellstar engine by banishing that Wanted so they can't get the drawback, or banishing the original Sinful Spoil so that they can't loop that back as well. So that's the hand traps. We'll now move on to the extra deck. Okay, so the extra deck again is pretty straightforward on this one. You've got your Link Karibo, your Relinquish Animar, and your Almirage as your Link 1s. You've got your SP Little Knight, IP Masquerina, Dark, Heater, Sunlight Wolf as your Link 2s, Deco, Talker and Celine as your link 3s, and then Appaloosa and Access Code as your link 4s. With your XYZs, you've got Garunix, Ding, and Super Star Slayer Typhoon. All of them put in a lot of work. I think Ding is actually the most underrated of all of them, just because Ding gives you that destruction protection, which can help you from your Fire King Island if they're trying to get rid of your Fire King Island and everything else. It can also help you get rid of like non-target send cards on the field, which is really, really nice. So it's a kind of cool option. The only thing that I don't like about this is the Deco Talker. I get why it's in here, but I feel you have to go quite far out of your way just to make it. Now, it's great because you pay 1,000 life points, draw a hand trap, or ideally draw a hand trap, and then during your opponent's turn, pay 1,000 life points, draw another hand trap. But ultimately, I just don't feel that it's worth it. I feel there must be a better way to make it. Because in the way to make it now, you need to kind of have 2 Cyverse monsters with different attributes, which is Linkuriboh and Sunlight Wolf, or of course, technically IP Masquerena, if you wanted to. But then to make the Sunlight Wolf, you need 2 fire monsters. So it's like, okay, cool. So Ponix and Garunix make Sunlight Wolf. Sunlight Wolf would then obviously be allow you to recycle a fire in the grave, which is nice. But it's like, where do you get that other monster? You then need to get the Ponix back to the board for your Linkuriboh. And it's like, so you already need to have opened up Ponix, and then a route through Diabellstar, and then a route to a Garunix. So it's like, okay, cool. So you've opened up Diabellstar, you've opened up Ponix, which is your normal summon, or any kind of normal summon fire monster. So it's like, okay, use up my normal summon for no reason rather than Link Follower. Activate the Sinful Spoils, get rid of the Diabellstar Witch, do everything you need to get the Ponix onto the board, great. And then summon out the Garunix. And it's like, is it really worth it to burn through all 3 of those monsters? I mean, it arguably might be, because then you burn through all 3 of those monsters, you would have set up your Kirin play anyway. It just kind of seems that it's a bit of an extended, like 2-card combo-ish, which isn't bad, but I never made it, basically, is what I'm saying. Everything else kind of has its role. Like Dark the Dark Charm is a nice one. Heater is great in the mirror match, and then if your opponent is trying to like ash you left, right, and centre, because it just gives you that ability to go up into Celine, and then Celine would then go to Access Code. The only difference with this particular build is that for Celine to revive from the graveyard, you need to have Diabellstar in the graveyard, or you need to have your Effect Veiler, which is obviously more of the reason why you use it, and then of course Dry and Lockbird. So you've got 3 ways of bringing back a spellcaster from the graveyard. Other than that, the revival isn't as consistent or great, but the idea is that as you're making your plays up, you'll kind of want to go to Linkuriboh plus a fire monster gets you into Heater, revive 1, go into Celine, revive 1, go into Access Code. So the idea is that by the time you make Access Code, it'll be up to 53, and it would have a light, a fire, and a dark to banish from the graveyard, so that gives you 3 non-target destructions. So that's it for the extra deck, and now I'll show you the side deck as well. So for the side deck, as you can see, I went with 2 Lava Golem, and the reason for this was because of the Sinful Spore engine, I was able to kind of like maintain my normal summon. And I was like, if my opponent has such an impressive board and I haven't got access to Dark Rule no more, Lava Golem can actually be very, very important. It's also a fire monster, so it does give you that nice little bit of ability to pop it off of the Fire King Island, should you hard open it, and then still give you your Garunix search and everything else you need to. So I thought it was kind of a cool option. I never needed to side it in. So I can't really give you my full outbreak on it, or like my full review on it. I do feel that it's kind of a cool option, and I just really, really like Lava Golem. So, and then of course you've got 3 Book of Eclipse. I really just like this as a general technical board breaker, especially when you've got the ability to go into Garunix during your turn and your opponent's turn to nuke the board. So it gives you that ability to Book of Eclipse your opponent's board, and then all you need to do is destroy a Garunix in the hand, destroy a fire monster in the hand, summon down Kirin, Garunix in the graveyard, summon itself back, overlay. As soon as they special summon a monster, go into Garunix and then nuke the board off. Dark Rule No More was basically for my environment specific. I just felt that sometimes when boards are built, I would struggle to kind of negate them, turn them off, and then nuke them up. So being able to play something like Dark Rule No More, you would turn the board off, and then you can go into your Garunix and nuke it. It's obviously a target you could also set and search off of the back of Thrust, which is why I'm also playing 1 Lightning Storm, 1 Tactics, 1 Evenly, and 1 Dusters, because all of these are targets that can be set off of the Thrust. Honestly, I want Tactics to be in the main, and I would probably put 2 in the main as opposed to having it in the side, and then I'd probably side out a hand trap or have an option of my main deck to be in the side as well. The Bestials technically just acted as like a third and a fourth copy of DD Crow, but for the specific matchups where Darks were going to be floating around. So again, they're probably a little bit more local specific than anything else. There are some nice abilities when you're going to summon down a Magnamute, search out a Druid Swarm, summon down the Druid Swarm, and then you send off the Druid Swarm with any of your multiple effects. And then that, of course, will ultimately allow you to send an additional card to the board. It's also pretty cool that if you make your Garunix Eternity with Druid Swarm on the board, it will destroy the Druid Swarm. And then if your opponent has a monster that can't be destroyed by card effects, but is still affected by being sent, you can then Druid Swarm send it, which is also quite nice as well. And that is pretty much it for the entire deck. So that's the side deck, the main deck, and of course the extra deck. So my overall thoughts when you're trying to compare the three versions of Fire King. So when you're trying to compare your Fire King Tri-Brigade, your Fire King Diabellstar, and your Fire King Dogmatika, which one really stands head and shoulders above the rest? Well, ultimately, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're on a bit of a budget, but you still want to fit as many hand traps in as humanly possible, then I would honestly go for the Dogmatika version. Not to say that the Tri-Brigade version is bad, but with the Tri-Brigade version, what you're looking at more times than not is you're going to be looking at the ability or just burning through a lot of your resource. So when you're burning through a lot of your resource, whether it be through just going through stuff like your Tri-Brigade kits, into your Fractals, Tenkis and everything else, it plays a little bit more into Draw and Lockbird, while also going through a lot of resources with draws and putting back. There's never really a +1. So you kind of want to mix it with an additional supporting engine just to give you that draw factor. When you're looking at the Diabellstar engine, what it does give you is it does give you a crazy amount of consistency. The fact that the Wanted Sinful Spores has those doubles effects to draw you a card, recycling your cards, and then of course searching you a card is absolutely insane. The fact that the Witch is a mini boss monster that also searches you out a very important component piece for the deck can be near invaluable. If you are, well, I still want to play Sinful Spoils, but I don't want to be spending for the Diabellstars and the Wanteds. Of course, you still have the space within the Dear Servants to then play your free original Sinful Spoils. Obviously, the benefit of when you are utilising something like Sinful Spoils, if you are playing a card like Tenki, is that it is a card on the field that once it's been activated, it's served its purpose, and you can send it to then give you free advantage without needing to rely on the Diabellstar, which is why it's so important, because through Wanted Sinful Spoils, it is a one-card route to give you everything you need to Ponyx. Now, obviously, the same can be said about the Dear Servant. The obviously difference is that if they stop the Dear Servant, you have a lot more restrictions on you than if they stop the Wanted Sinful Spoils. So ultimately, as it comes down to it, the most versatile to be able to play through a lot of hand traps in its own turn, in my opinion, is Tri-Brigade. The ones that are the most consistent is, of course, the Diabellstar version. The one that allows you to play a budget route of Diabellstar is, of course, Nadir. Now, when I say that the Tri-Brigade can play through more hand traps during your turn, what I'm saying is, because you're not playing as many hand traps as you want, you go wombo combo, you go everything all to the wall, build up your entire board, and then you're trying to say to your opponent, break it. If you can't break it, I win. Whereas with the other two, you're basically saying, okay, if you stop me, I'm going to have 3 or 4 hand traps to stop you back because I have that much more space to allow me to play that many more hand traps. So you're basically relying on your hand traps to kind of cover your backside, which can be good in the right environment if your opponent can't play through multiple hand traps. But if they can, that's when this deck's going to fall apart because it'll then be like, okay, you can play through these hand traps and still put up a board and you've set up a negate to stop my one crackback. So that's just my review on those 3 particular builds. I'm not too sure what I'm going to be doing going forward with this. I'm not sure which route I want to take. I kind of want to give, now that I kind of played the Diabellstar engine, I kind of want to give the Dogmatika one another go because I feel that it could do the same thing, but open up a couple of different avenues that might be worth trialing out. Anyway, I hope you found this enjoyable. I hope it's given you a couple of insights into the deck in general. I wanted to do it a little bit differently, give you more of a report, and then obviously break down my kind of review of the decks altogether. So it gives you as much information as possible rather than just going, here's my deck list, it did well. It's like you don't really learn from that, whereas this can kind of help you to say, what I'm trying to say here is, basically, if you want to play the Diabellstar engine but you don't want to spend loads of money, go down the Nadir route. It will do the exact same thing, just a little less consistent. If you want to have fun and just go wombo combo all to the wall, go for the Tri-Brigade version. If you want to go to high level events, learn the deck inside out, and you're probably going to be working towards the Diabellstar engine. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.